The Global Troop Resource, trying to put 1,000 skills into every troop's backpack.
Welcome, everybody, to the Global Troop Resource Show. We are here tonight, of course, with my co-host, Steve Perrone, and our special guest speaker, Frank Yeung. And Frank is an ASM from Troop 191 in the Lindquist District. And he's also the Council International Rep, and he's chair of the International Committee. And tonight, we are going to be talking about the International Scouting Program. And we'll get right into that right after this.
Hi, I'm Coach Scott, and if you've been a loyal viewer of the Global Troop Resource for the past few years, you've probably guessed that we broadcast from a home-based studio. That said, we're preparing for a future where we'd like to take our show on the road. Our plan is to start by visiting other troops on the East Coast and broadcast in person from scout camps and scout reservations. If you'd like to be on our show or to see our plans, visit globaltroopresource.com. That's globaltroopresource.com. Now, back to the show.
We're back with Frank Yeung. And welcome, Frank. So tell me about the International Scouting Program.
Well, thank you, Scott and Steve invited me for the podcast. The International Scouting Program is not actually new. Many countries have the program. It's just how they want to broadcast those programs or how they market the program to the scout in their own country. So when I look at Scout, right, I will look at Scout by just itself on Boy Scout America. I will look at Scout as a whole in the whole world. Let's think about World Jamboree just we have last year, 2019. Some of them might know or already attended the World Jamboree. We have co-hosted with Canada and Mexico. So just our labor on the north and south, right? Think about that way. So Canada have Scout, Mexico have Scout, and then who else has Boy Scout or Girl Scout in the world, right?
How many countries, Frank, have scouting?
Repeat that, I'm sorry, Steve.
How many countries in the world have scouting?
Okay. In the World Scout Organization movement, which is WOSM, recorded back to last year, 2019, we have 170 countries with Scout. Okay. So on the other hand, think about it, we are not alone here.
Yep.
Okay. You have to think of the border.
Now, Frank, of those 170 countries, how many only have boys? In other words, most countries have both boys and girls, don't they?
That's correct, Steve. Think about less than 1%. I give you an exact number. 6 out of the 170 countries, only 6 have only boys only program. The rest of them is co-ed. I mean, co-ed is not just only a certain age level. It's every level, from the Cub Scout to the Scout level to the venturing. Some countries also have a different program. It's called Rover. So they're above, much older. They're more, most of them is young adult. So it's very different. You can compare scouting program from US to other country program. When I look at the world by itself, scouting program only follow 2 types of scheme. The US scheme and the original from the UK, which are founder coming from Baden-Powell, the UK scheme. So if you look at what's the difference between UK scheme and US scheme, right? If you look at the just US by itself, simple enough. We know that we have Cub Scout, Boy Scout, then venturing. Then for Cub Scout is 8 to 10 and a half to 11. Then Boy Scout from 11 to 18. And then venture is from 14 to 20, right? But if you follow the UK scheme, which is a lot of European using that program, is Cub Scout is from 8 to 11, same as us. But before 8, they have a smaller program from 6 to 8. Some country called grasshopper, the other called beaver, and many type of name. They just want to attract younger boys and girls into the program, more like introductions. So like after beaver grasshopper, there's a Cub Scout. Then it's a Boy Scout. There's a Scout, not Boy Scout, a Scout program. The age group is 11 to close to 15 or 16, because they believe that program is more skillful for that young group. You compare the US, a lot of boys, based on statistics, you can see a lot of boys and girls when they age to the 16, most of them actually finish their Eagles. And then the rest of the 2 years, a lot of time they do other things different. But the European actually developed that from 16 to 20th, they say called venturing. We have Eagle Scout in the US, the highest rank. But you think about the Korean, the highest rank is Tiger Scout. And then the Japanese highest rank is called Fuji Scout. And then India from UK or the Commonwealth, now it's Queen Elizabeth, they call Queen Scout. Queen Scout, Fuji Scout, Tiger Scout can only be earned by venture. So that's a big difference, because that program was designed to have more high adventures, number one, and then scouts should have more maturity to tackle some of those activities. So when I was Queen Scout, I earned it when I was 20. That's right at the edge that I can earn. So that is the highest rank, right? What about rovering? I mentioned earlier. Rovering is for young adults from 21 to 25, that they make contribution to the society using a scouting program and concept to help them grow. So this is very different than what we think about scouting here.
Mm-hmm.
But
do you think that someday we may go to Rover Scouts in the U.S.? Like what I'm thinking, I'm just getting the impression that maybe someday we'll see venturing maybe end at 18, and then they'll have a need for something, say, between 18 and 25. Do you think that maybe someday we might see Rover Scouts in the U.S.?
Well, I could see that happen, but the only difference is Rover Scout happened in the U.S. back in the 1940s and 50s. That's Rover Scout here. Unfortunately, the program wasn't successful based on many reasons. Number one is those young men had different value at the time. Of course, the family obligation is important. So the program, it cannot be successful without the support. Now, at the same time that you only have a handful of Rover Scouts also cannot be successful, because when they age out, what happened, right? So I can see US, if the policy changed, if they want to make something happen, definitely will, for sure. But that is the critical question it will be asked. If you had young men and women want to join the rovering, what your program should look like? How should you target those? Is there advancement should be involved? Or there should be more be like the UK or the rest of the world program, rovering is servicing the community, provide value, provide scouting value to the community and to their personal growth. That is a critical balance. Is most of this age group, either they are in their finish their college or university, or they might go to their postgraduate degree. Some of them already have a job lined up for them. So you have to look at where the balance should be.
So Steve, you were saying that we might have a rover program, but we've got venturing, which goes to 21. So that would add an extra 3 years. Is it usual or is it unusual for people to go from scouts at 18 into venturing?
Well, usually they go at a younger age, before 18. The nice thing about scouts that start and attain the rank of first class, that once they transfer over to a venture unit, they can continue with their advancement and earn Eagle as a venture scout.
So right now, let me share some slide with you, talk about scouting as a whole unit,
Awesome.
instead of just focusing on just BSA versus other.
So we're going to take a look at Frank's slides right after this.
Hi, I'm Coach Scott from the Global Troop Resource. I'd like to share with you some information about a nonprofit called the Education Alliance for Amateur Radio. These are the guys that I called to help my troop complete the Radio Merit Badge, and they are awesome. If you have any interest in running the Radio Merit Badge for your troop and are on the East Coast, preferably the Mid-Atlantic region, they are an excellent resource. They also happen to teach the electronics and electricity merit badges, but the Radio Merit Badge is their specialty. Their goal is to promote science, technology, engineering, and math education within organizations like the Scouts, plus communities like first responders and others who use or advance the use of amateur radio. Calling your attention to this nonprofit is just another way that Global Troop Resource is trying to put 1,000 skills into every troop's backpack. You can learn more at www.radiostemalliance.org. Now, back to the show.
We're back. And Frank, you've got your slideshow up about International Scouts. So why don't you give us a little presentation?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Scott. So let's look at this first picture. What do you see there? You see a whole bunch of people with flag on top of the world. But they're all Scout. So that picture was drawn in the 1950s. Another picture, that one is more famous. Most of you probably recognize it. That's drawn by Norman Rockwell, very famous artist in the US. Mm-hmm. But think about the sixth person in here, right? Don't look at the flag back there. Some of them is not the same. Think about Scout is not alone. It's not just only us. We're plenty. So we're going to talk about scouting around the world. What happened when we have other scouts from different countries? What do they do? What is the differences? Do they have the program just like us, or do they just simply speak in different language and then we don't share any common bond? No, that's not the case. Now, this is a poster about how many countries back in 1984, okay? I can guarantee you that if you think about it, where your family come from. Do you think they have Scout? My family come from China. I'm from Hong Kong. Hong Kong is somewhere around there. And my family come from Italy. Yes, Italy has Scout there. And how about Irish? Absolutely. So you think about this, look at this picture, that's back in 1984. There's about 156 countries on this poster. Now we're close to 170. So one thing we all in common is about the world crest, which is on our uniform on top of the left pocket, right? So it's a purple patch with a white circle and then world symbol right in the middle. That actually was allow all the scouts in the world have the same emblem to recognize everybody is equal. There's no difference. So World Scout emblem was established based on that concept. But what exactly the World Scout emblem mean? There are a lot of things similar to what we know about first class, such as North Point, which is right in the middle part of the photo leaves. And then what's the main point of scouting promise, which is the three tips, the left, in the middle, and the right. And then the 2-point star represent the truth and knowledge. And then what about the color or the square knot on that, right? Well, the square knot symbolize unity and brotherhood. And then the color, purple and white, specific pick because white represent purity and volleyball devoted leadership and helping other people. So that's a meaning on those. Okay. What other thing that do you think that we have common? National scale organizations, we have lots of them. Okay. As I mentioned earlier on, we have 170 countries in the whole world, and then many of them, this is a little bit outdated slide, I have 169, but many of the countries have boys and girls in the program. So I mentioned earlier, what other thing do you think that is common? Many of you understand the Boy Scout model, which is be prepared, is coming from Baden-Powell back in Bronx Island when he took the boys into training them to be a Boy Scout. That model is being translated to 156 different languages. When you look at our second class or first class emblem, the word be prepared, if you look at the Japanese Scout, they have the same emblem, just happen to be in Japanese letter saying be prepared. You look at Malaysia, same one, they have same type of word in Malaya, in be prepared. So it's very common for all the Scouts using the same type of model. How about Scout sign and Scout handshake? Are they the same? Scout sign universal, this is the same. Okay. Scout handshake, always the left hand, is the same. And then one thing on adult, wood badge is international recognized advanced leader training. Regardless which country, if you wear a wood badge, they know you're fully trained adult leader. Okay. And then think about US, we have many training. VSA do a wonderful job, provide many type of training for us and for adult leader and volunteers. And many countries, wood badge is the only training they can have. There's no other training. So earning a wood badge for many countries is considered prestige in their scouting movement. Good example, I'm telling you the truth about Japanese Scouts specifically. Because I recently know someone just got 4 beads on wood badge as a training commissioner for the country. Take him 35 years to get to be a training commissioner. Because earning a 2B wood badge take minimum 2 years, and you have to be selected to attend a wood badge course. It's not everyone pay the fee, sign up for it, you can go. No, there's no such thing. So if you're an adult leader, earn a wood badge, it's a prestige for you and the scouting community. For us in the BSA, well, I have the scout badge. Do I need to wear the world badge? Yes or no, it's up to your troop design. For me, that being an international rep of the council and being a scout for the international committee for a long time, I think it symbolizes you are part of the larger organization, not just only BSA. You're part of the World Scout Organization movement. Think about that. We are not alone. And then you should be proud of yourself. We have more than 250 million people scout around the world. That's how big we are. Okay. If you think about we are just mom and pop shop down on the road, it's not. We are humongous.
Frank, last summer we had the opportunity to go to our council camp and meet 7 troops of scouts from Sweden who were touring the United States on their way to the World Jamboree. So we had the opportunity to have a dinner, a meal, and a campfire with them, and that was a very exciting time for the scouts from Cradle of Liberty Council to meet the scouts from Sweden. And that type of event, you know, occurs at national jamborees. Are there any other get-togethers where scouts from other countries get a chance to meet each other?
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. There are multiple events. I usually post them on the Facebook page on the Cradle of Liberty Council, but let me mention some of them with both of you. Think about European Jamboree. They're supposed to have it next year, 2021. However, because of the COVID-19, they postponed it to 2022. But European Jamboree don't happen that often. You think about Europe as almost same size as United States. They should have more, right? But don't, because of all the setup on the European side is a little bit different. But last time they had the European Jamboree was 2005. That was quite a long time ago. So, and also we have Jamboree down in Southern America, and then we call them Inter-American Jamboree. The next one, I believe, also supposed to be at the end of this year or early next year, has been canceled based on that. But certainly the more to come. Now, think about it. We're 169 countries. Gotta have individual national jamboree just like us, right? Absolutely. Okay. Most of the countries have their national jamboree once every 4 years, just like us. So usually they would put those information out to all the National Scout organizations, have them join their National Jamboree. So like Japan National Jamboree is supposed to be next year, and then got canceled. Australian National Jamboree is supposed to be 2022. I'm not sure they're going to have that. Think about Canadian National Jamboree, what's happened 2 years ago in Nova Scotia. And then all these countries, they do have their National Jamboree.
Yeah, that's interesting because I don't hear much about the jamborees in the other countries. And
yeah.
Frankly, I'd like to hear more about them.
Yeah, Scott, that's one of the reasons I want to broadcast more of those messages to the Scout, giving them opportunity to join Scout from a different country for their national event. Most of the time when I get those information, I post on a Facebook page, on the Cradle Liberty website, and then also send it to our council marketing department, have them broadcast them to using different type of media.
All right. The only two events that I've heard really on a regular basis are World Jamboree, which I think is awesome, and also Jamboree on the Air. And I mentioned to you earlier that I'm a ham operator, and I'm always promoting, that we try and get scouts speaking with other scouts in other countries, and that seems like a good way to do it. So do you know much about the Jamboree on the Air or Jamboree on the Internet?
Yes, I do. Jamboree on the Air, think about that. It was using a ham radio, talking to other scouts from overseas. Jamboree in the Air was developed back in the 1950s after the Second World War. When after the Second World War, the world population has to be decimated. And then World Scout organizations think about how can we link Scout from one country to the other. They can have some conversations to help them re-establish scouting in their home country. And then that is how Jamboree in the Air started. Back in the day when I was still young, many years ago, and then actually I participated in Jamboree in the Air. I remember my leader have a ham radio, and then we use a specific call sign to talk to scouts from different countries. I remember I talked to scouts from Argentina and UK. The only word I can say at that time was hello and goodbye. And then you can imagine if other country scouts, they might not fluent in English, you might have difficulty. But certainly a lot of those leaders that actually helping the scout to get those engagement, they're English speaker. So that will make it easier.
The other thing that I think makes it a little bit easier is this little iPhone right here, because I've got a translator on it. I can speak into this and it'll translate into whatever language I want. And then I can put that over the air to another scout or a leader or somebody. So we've got new ways of communicating with people.
Yeah, that exactly. I think that go back to the Star Trek universal communicator, right? So
Right.
nowadays, I think that you have an iPhone or you have any type of phone, if you download a translation app, it's very easy to use. In fact, I used the translation app when I was attend 2015 World Jamboree in Japan. I have basic understanding of Japanese. Unfortunately, I'm not fluent speaking Japanese. I was working as an international camp staff at the World Jamboree at that time at the registration booth. There's a Japanese leader coming to me, talk to me in Japanese. I have to use Japanese, tell him that I am not Japanese. I can only speak English or Mandarin. That is true story, but they don't recognize, they just recognize I'm Asian. I must able to speak Japanese. So that is a difference, right? Let's go back to the point that I talked about Jamboree on the air. And the second one is Jamboree on the internet, right? Now it's just so efficient. Back in the 1980s, internet was invented. Someone think about, well, let's try to use the computer. Let's talk to each other using internet. That's how Jamboree in the internet invented. The funny part is, I believe people using Jamboree in the internet a lot more often because it's convenience. We're all in lockdown on COVID, right? Going to your computer, turn on the camera, just go to the Jamboree on the internet site. You can talk to thousands and thousands of people, right?
Right. Well, you don't need a license either.
Yeah, become very convenient, right? But other than Jamboree on the internet, Jamboree in the air, you can using all the social media. Now it's such so convenient. If you have people have Instagram, they have Facebook account, they use TikToks, or they use any type of social media, they can talk to scale all over the world very easily. Okay, I believe back in 10 years ago, I don't believe people would have a Facebook page for their troops. Now, if you can figure out a lot of European troops, they use Facebook to communicate with their scout. And then a lot of leaders from different countries also using those capacity to help their scout to understand where is scouting all about from different countries. I think it's always good for people to using those social media, but be careful because you still need to have your parent permissions and also your adult leader supervisions when you go for those sites. So you are protected, and then your family are protected, and then those care about you are protected. Those are important facts.
Right. You know, I just had an idea because our troop is having more patrol meetings now than large troop meetings because we've got a troop of 50 to 60 scouts. And what with COVID, we're trying to adhere to the safety guidelines and only getting together in smaller groups or whatever. You know, Steve, what we ought to do, we ought to set up something, communication with another international troop or patrol. And at least on a couple of patrol meetings, have some conversations back and forth and learn what we're all about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think those are definitely people to understand. Even they just have casual conversations. That is enlightenment for some of the younger scouts. Or even older scouts, maybe they know something about it, but they want to get more information. Or they're just curious what other people are doing. Those are definitely benefit anyone interested about scouting as a whole. What are we talking about?
Awesome. Well, thank you, Frank. This was absolutely an enlightening experience. I'm really glad that we had you on the show. And thank you all for coming out tonight.
The Global Troop Resource, trying to put 1,000 skills into every troop's backpack.